James, Earl of Wessex, a quiet and frequently ignored member of the royal family, has just made a shocking announcement that changes the course of history. James has finally accepted a brand new HRH title, formally becoming a prince of the realm after years of being kept out of the spotlight. This action changes the dynamics of the monarchy going forward, in addition to enhancing his royal status. However, why now? And what is the true significance of this daring change? A young royal on the precipice of fate. With its crowns, palaces, and ageless customs, the British royal family has enthralled people all over the world for centuries. Beyond ceremony, what most interests people is the human drama, the conflict between obligation and desire. Usually, the focus is on Princess Catherine, the heir or the monarch, whose every move provokes criticism. However, a surprising person has recently come into the public eye: Wessex, James Earl. James has grown up outside of the intense media spotlight, unlike his well-known relatives, so his quiet ascent to public prominence represents a welcome change in the ongoing royal story. James appears to be a typical adolescent at the age of 17. He dedicates his days to school, getting ready for college, and making the first moves toward adulthood, just like a lot of boys his age. Most people believe that his life is peaceful and typical, free from the intense scrutiny that has followed his cousins, Princes William and Harry, since they were young. But there is a remarkable truth hidden beneath that serenity. James' decisions are anything but typical, and his path is not like any other young man's. James must make a choice that could change not just his own destiny, but also the course of the monarchy. The question is straightforward but enormous. Will he become a working royal who dedicates his life to duty, public service, and the constant scrutiny of the world's cameras? Or will he go down the more subdued path, one of seclusion, autonomy, and liberty, where he can lead as near a typical life as a late Queen Elizabeth II's grandson can? James, Earl of Wessex, must make a choice that will affect more than just his own future. The institution depends on a smaller group of royals to perform official duties, because King Charles III is advocating for a more condensed monarchy. The strength and sustainability of the monarchy may be influenced by James' decision to enter the public sphere or follow a more private one. He might relieve pressure on senior royals and reaffirm the importance of the crown if he takes the position. Otherwise, the strain becomes more intense on others, revealing gaps in Charles' vision. Surprisingly, this little-known teen's choice could have a significant impact on the future of the monarchy. Will James accept the call of the crown, or will he quietly leave? Let's examine the specifics of James's pivotal period as he balances important personal choices with his royal responsibilities. James is about to become an adult and become self-sufficient. Prince Edward and Duchess Sophie's youngest child, James, Earl of Wessex, is subtly approaching a pivotal moment in his life. James is only 17 years old, and this December he will turn 18, marking the beginning of adulthood, getting ready to leave the protective surroundings of his family home. Lady Louise Windsor, his sister, has already made this move and is presently pursuing her studies in Scotland. Her younger brother might soon follow in her footsteps, it appears. As James finishes his A-levels at Radley College, he may be preparing to leave for college the following year, which would be another significant turning point in his individual path to independence. Moving away from home for undergraduate studies is more than just an academic decision for royal family members. It's customary. There is something unique about university life that goes beyond textbooks and lectures, the opportunity to live as young adults away from the royal protocol's constant scrutiny. Without the rigid restrictions of palace life, it's a chance to experience normalcy, make friends, and discover who they are. Young royals can learn to be independent, make mistakes, and develop in these new environments. Experiences that contribute to their personal development just as much as their schooling. However, the specifics are still kept under wraps, despite the increasing interest in James's future plans. According to royal correspondent Danielle Stacey, this enigmatic atmosphere is deliberate, because of the thoughtful decisions made by their parents. The Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh, James and his sister have spent the majority of their childhood out of the spotlight, in contrast to senior royals. In order to give their kids the most typical childhood possible, Edward and Sophie have continuously protected them from the constant media attention. The public shouldn't anticipate any major announcements or early announcements regarding James's educational plans as a result. He still has the final say over his future, at least for the time being. However, if royal history is any indication, there are hints about potential future developments. Before James, a lot of young royals took years off after graduating from school. Along this path, they can expand their horizons, acquire priceless life experience, and experience some degree of independence before the burdens of adulthood become more pressing. It wouldn't be shocking if James took this path and spent some time overseas, cautiously avoiding the spotlight, before starting his studies. Additionally, custom dictates that when he does begin college, he might choose a campus outside of London in order to preserve his privacy and live a more genuine student life. One thing is for sure, regardless of James's course, as he starts to establish his own identity both inside and outside the royal family, the upcoming year will be a turning point in his life. Why would James be so desperately needed by the monarchy now? What justification could there be for James's immediate inclusion in the royal circle, a crown under stress? In order to fully comprehend why James's choice is so significant, we must first take a step back and consider the royal family's current situation. King Charles III made no secret of his vision when he took the throne in 2022. He desired a more modern, affordable, and approachable monarchy that was smaller and more effective. Sovereign risks are another issue that many businesses and investors struggle to manage. The plan was to eliminate extravagance, reduce expenses, and concentrate on a select group of royals who could honor their responsibilities. Although the plan seemed admirable, the reality has turned out to be much more complex. Although the streamlined monarchy may have appeared tidy on paper, it has been overburdened in reality. The institution has lost its strongest pillars due to health problems, scandals that have eroded public trust, and the resignation or expulsion of senior royals. A permanent hole was left by Prince Andrew's decline from grace following damaging controversies. Another crucial layer of support was destroyed by Prince Harry and Meghan's abrupt departure. The never-ending flow of responsibilities and demands is too much for even the steadfast Princess Anne, who is renowned for her unwavering work ethic. The fissures are starting to appear. The number of royal engagements is increasing at an alarming rate. Royal patrons are being urged by charities to maintain the prominence of their causes. There are just not enough hands to share the load, despite the public's continued expectation that the monarchy be active and visible. What formerly appeared to be a sleek, contemporary monarchy now appears brittle, possibly unsustainable. Prince William enters the picture at this point. William, the heir apparent, is unable to overlook the difficulties facing his family's establishment. He appears to understand the importance of bringing in new reinforcements more quickly than his father did. The risk of burnout or collapse becomes extremely real in the absence of fresh blood. William's attention naturally shifts to Lady Louise Windsor and her younger brother James, Earl of Wessex, the younger royals who have so far led more sedate lives away from the spotlight. The unsung heroes of the monarchy, for a long time, have been their parents, Prince Edward and Sophie. They put in a lot of work, cover for others in times of need, and have avoided the scandals that have marred so many others. They are dependable, humble, and incredibly loyal, exactly the kind of stability the crown sorely needs. They could revitalize the monarchy's shabby image if their offspring decided to follow in their footsteps. However, the choices are already becoming more limited. Lady Louise has made it clear that she wants to follow her own path and leave her royal responsibilities in order to live her life as she sees fit. James is left. Even though he is still a teenager, he finds himself at a turning point that could affect not only his own destiny, but also the destiny of the monarchy. He has never been more needed by the crown, and his choice could have far more repercussions than he could have ever dreamed. Would James's choice be affected in any way by Lady Louise's rejection? Would James find it easy to refuse the request from the monarchy? Let's examine the specifics of how James might be impacted by Louise's rejection. The weight on James and Lady Louise's rejection. Lady Louise Windsor, James's older sister, has emerged as one of the most fascinating characters in the subdued drama of the royal family. In the narrative of responsibility, decision and identity, she stands for a dramatic contrast. She was fully entitled to dress as Her Royal Highness Princess Louise when she turned 18. She could have entered the glamorous but demanding world of royalty with that one choice alone. Just having that title would have given you access to privilege, influence, and lifelong public recognition. However, she tactfully turned her back on the chance in a move that shocked many. She decided to avoid the demands of monarchy and continue to be known as Lady Louise Windsor instead of accepting the throne. She is currently a student of English at the esteemed University of St. Andrews in Scotland, which was the breeding ground for Prince William and Catherine Middleton's romance. Louise, however, has expressed her desire to pursue professions well outside the palace walls, including the military, diplomacy, and even law, rather than being swept up in royal tradition. These are declarations of intent rather than merely career choices. They demonstrate her resolve to live independently of royal titles. Her rejection, however, caused Prince William to feel disappointed. He had hoped that Louise, with her intelligence, charm, and inherent grace, might have joined the royal front line as the monarchy faced mounting pressure to modernize and stay relevant. Her presence represented a new approachable face of the crown and might have eased the burden on senior royals. However, Louise's choice effectively shut that door. This is where the ripple effect starts. Louise has unintentionally placed more pressure on her younger brother by taking a back seat. James is no longer just Edward and Sophie's quiet second child without her to share the limelight or duties. Rather, he has unexpectedly emerged as the young royal who could continue the monarchy's legacy. James might have been able to live a life largely hidden from the public's and media's constant scrutiny if Louise had made a different decision. However, her autonomy has pushed situations into his lap. James's choices are now more than just personal ones. They have profound symbolic meaning. Will he, like his sister, discreetly withdraw into a private life of freedom and choice, or will he answer the call to royal duty? Before James, let's take a quick look at the specifics of the two roads. James at the crossroads. As James approaches his 18th birthday, he must make a decision that will impact not only his own future, but also the course of the monarchy. He has to decide whether to live in private or accept Prince William's invitation to become a working royal in order to enter the royal spotlight. This position would require him to give up a lot of his personal freedom in exchange for ongoing public duties, ceremonies, charitable work, and trips abroad. Even though every action would be closely watched, James would also have a strong platform to help modernize the monarchy, revitalize the royal family, and support worthwhile causes. This path is incredibly alluring. He might represent a younger generation in the monarchy and demonstrate to the world that modern values and tradition don't have to conflict. They are able to walk together. Additionally, his participation would relieve the strain on senior royals who are becoming more and more overburdened by their responsibilities. James would be protecting an institution that many believe is at a turning point in addition to serving his country in this way. However, such a role would come at a high cost. He would exchange a lifetime of scrutiny for the ease of anonymity. Every choice he makes, every friendship he makes, and even his personal difficulties could make the news. Even though he might not have the crown on his head, he would always be carrying the burden of responsibility. James, however, could turn down the offer. By doing this, he would emulate his sister and choose a more sedate private life away from the responsibilities of the throne. He could attend college, pursue career goals, follow his passions, and live according to his own schedule instead of one that was set by centuries of custom. He would be able to enjoy independence, freedom, and privacy, but these things would have their own costs. His choice would convey the idea that the younger royals might decide they no longer want to be bound by the throne. This would not be a trivial issue for the monarchy. With fewer working royals bearing an increasing amount of responsibility, the institution is already experiencing what some refer to as a staffing crisis. James's departure will make it more difficult for Prince William to maintain the throne in the future. The rejection might signify more than just a personal preference. It might represent the slow disintegration of a system due to the innate will of those who were born into it, rather than intentional reform. Whether James makes the choice or not, it affects more than just him. It might reverberate long after he turns 18, influencing the future of the monarchy in ways that are currently unknown. Prince Edward's choice was one of the factors contributing to this complexity. How did he do it? What impact did it have on his kids? What made him make that choice? Was it worthwhile? Let's investigate. A royal life without the weight of HRH. When Prince Edward, Queen Elizabeth II's youngest son, wed Sophie Rhys-Jones in June 1999, the couple decided to break with the norms of the royal family. They decided to take a different route for their future children with the Queen's approval. Their children would inherit the more humble courtesy titles that are typically given to children of an earl, rather than the more prestigious titles of prince or princess. It was a deliberate move to raise their kids in a setting more rooted in the realities of daily life and less dominated by royal formality. Because of this arrangement, their son James was born as Viscount Severn, a courtesy title associated with his father's earldom, rather than as a prince. He quietly carried this title for many years, avoiding the intense attention that those with the HRH style frequently receive. Although titles in the royal family are rarely static, James's life remained comparatively normal, at least by royal standards. Exactly. Indeed. And I believe those relationships are made possible by spending those summertime moments together. We're so much luckier, really. James's title changed again in 2023, when Edward and Sophie were made Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh. As the heir apparent to his father's earldom, he later adopted the title James, Earl of Wessex. But there was still one important difference. The esteemed title of Duke of Edinburgh will never be passed down to James, as decided upon when the late Queen and Prince Philip first organized the succession of titles. That dukedom, a noteworthy honor strongly associated with Prince Philip's legacy, will eventually return to the crown upon Edward's passing. In contrast to some of his royal cousins, James's future will likely be more subdued and private. Royal observers have long been captivated by the rationale behind this unusual decision. The BBC claims that the decision was made on purpose to escape some of the responsibilities associated with royal titles. To put it another way, Prince Edward and Sophie wished to protect their kids from the strict obligations, public scrutiny, and high expectations that frequently come with being a prince or princess. In a 2020 interview, Sophie, who is currently the Duchess of Edinburgh, provided a unique look into their parenting style. Her words painted a vivid picture of a modern royal household, where the children are prepared, not for a lifetime of palaces and privilege, but for the possibility of forging their own careers and identities. She explained with a sense of practicality and maternal clarity. By not being addressed as their Royal Highness since they were young, James and Lady Louise Windsor, his sister, have benefited from a more well-rounded upbringing. They interact with peers outside of royal circles, go to regular schools, and get a taste of life outside the opulent confines of monarchy. This decision, in many respects, represents a larger change within the royal family, an effort to adjust to the public's shifting expectations and the changing function of monarchy in the 21st century. For the Earl of Wessex, James, it is the start of a life that strikes a rare balance in the royal world between grounded reality and noble heritage. How would James react to that? What impact might it have on the monarchy? Despite the weight of the responsibility and his young age, all signs suggest that he accepted, so let's examine the uncertainties that surround his decision. It is a matter of the future. Even though James of Wessex is only 16th in line for the British throne, his impending choice will have far more consequences than his rank would imply. For a young man on the verge of adulthood, what seems to be a personal decision is actually a reflection of a much larger issue. In the modern world, what function should the monarchy serve? The traditional expectations of lifetime service and sacrifice to the crown seem to be at odds with contemporary values. in a time when democracy, individual liberty, and individuality are cherished. Tradition has been the monarchy's lifeblood for centuries. It was anticipated that younger royals would assume service-related responsibilities and serve as outward representations of continuity and national loyalty. However, things have changed. Many people now contend that having royal ancestry shouldn't equate to sacrificing one's independence, goals, or aspirations. Rather, each prince and princess ought to be free to choose whether they want to serve or live as private citizens in peace. And now, James is right in the middle of this argument. The fact that the monarchy itself has differing opinions further complicates matters. King Charles III has a strong sense of tradition and envisions a smaller but clearly active royal family. Nonetheless, Prince William, his son, seems to favor a somewhat different model that emphasizes fewer working royals, while placing a great deal of responsibility on those who do remain. This puts James at a precarious crossroads. Should he take the less traveled route of personal freedom, or the well-trod path of duty? It's interesting to note that Lady Louise Windsor, his elder sister, has already selected the latter. She has discreetly entered a private life away from the continuous scrutiny and flashing cameras. Despite being respected, that decision has put James under even more pressure. The monarchy is eagerly awaiting his response as it still recovers from years of controversy and change. Across Europe, monarchies are changing in countries like Sweden, Denmark, and even Spain. In those nations, younger royals are free to lead normal lives, pursuing their passions, careers, and families, free from the burden of public expectations. But there is nothing like the monarchy in Britain. Every choice, even from a royal as far down the line as James, becomes worldwide news due to its historical significance and global influence. As James gets closer to turning 18, rumors start to circulate. Will he come forward and assume the responsibilities of a working royal, serving as a representative of the crown alongside his parents and cousins? Or will he quietly leave, like his sister, and decide to forego tradition in favor of independence? In actuality, his choices will not only determine his own destiny, but may also determine the course of the monarchy in the decades to come. Will it continue to be a tradition-based institution, or will it change to reflect the spirit of liberty that characterizes our time? The world awaits James' decision. Custom, autonomy, obligation, or liberty. Even though his response is private, it will have an impact that extends well beyond the palace walls. What, in your opinion, persuaded James to accept the offer in spite of its gravity and his advanced age? Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. Remember to subscribe and like.